What's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. Mike, we had a kind of a chill conversation-like episode last week. It was rather fun and relaxing, like a vacation-esque episode.
Very much so, yeah. Yeah. So much so that I think I would like to do that again.
Oh, right, yeah. I'm down.
Yeah, dude.
Don't worry, guys. We're not going to jump into conspiracy theories all the time. If you've noticed, we don't really cover that shit. It was just an idea we had that we thought would be fun. But
all right, no conspiracy theories. Then. No, I'm the same way because I feel like the whole conspiracy theory thing gets political really quick. You know, like for some reason it always falls into politics, and it fucking pisses me off.
Yeah, it's definitely gone that way. You just can't believe in reptile people anymore, you know?
Yeah, it's just, it gets too stressful. I used to love politics, and I would get into, discussions and stuff with people, but it's too stressful now. We live in such a fucking weird world. Like, the people that are the extremists on both sides are the loudest fucking people, and they will drown out any sort of fucking sensibility that you might have, any sort of rational thought. They're like, fuck you and your rational thought. And it's sad, man. I don't like it.
I just like the videos when people get bumped into at the grocery store and they just sit on the floor and scream like people give a shit.
Right. Yeah. Why?
If that's you, I love you. You're my favorite.
You are my favorite person on earth. You provide all the chuckles.
So what are we going to hash out tonight, Mike?
I was thinking for people that maybe haven't been around for a while, or maybe they haven't heard every episode, and they're kind of curious about us and our not us and like our fucking, I'm not going to give my resume or anything, but like where we kind of where we came from and how we got to where we are in terms of our interest and I guess belief in the paranormal and aliens and everything. And because I know that both of us have evolved in our beliefs in various things over the years, and it's definitely a lot different from where we started,
That's very true. And not just political things, just a lot's changed in the world around the paranormal.
And also, like, so we obviously we had an interest forever, and we'll get to that. But it's not like we haven't done, like, we weren't doing research before. It's not like we were like, oh, you know what? I like UFOs, but I don't know dick about UFOs. But for some reason, when I've had to look into things more in depth, like for a show, or something that we're covering, it makes me get a little deeper in there, and because of that, I start to see patterns, and I start to see things. So it's kind of shaped, or I guess over time evolved my opinion on what things are and what's real and what's not. And because it used to be, I was just a believer. I wanted to fucking believe everything, and you can't do that. You can't do that. You're an extremist if you do that.
Yeah, that's kind of the truth of the matter. You're an extremist if you do that. What if you know? I know, Mike. I know it's real.
Well, I know that it's real to a certain extent. I'll say that, but I don't think things are like I used to think things are, and I don't really know at what point things started to change, but there was definitely a period of time. Like I talked about this a long time ago. Well, not like super long ago, but when the first season of Hellier came out, I remember that like around that time, I had also read this book called The Interdimensional Universe, which is all about how paranormal things are tied together. And then I was kind of like reviewing a bunch of old cases and just various things that may not have been connected, but looking at them like kind of how are they connected. And I started to find all these weird connections. And then Hellier came out, which I know, a lot of people love it. A lot of people think it's bullshit, but whether it's real or bullshit or good or bad, whatever, it doesn't matter. The reason I'm bringing it up is because a lot of the things in that show were about how the paranormal is connected, and like they did certain things tying, showing how certain phenomena is tied together. So I just thought it was interesting. It came out at a very interesting time, and all these synchronicities just kind of lined up. Like my mind is already going in this direction. I find this book, which kind of really brings that home. Then this show comes out right immediately afterwards. It was like the universe was beating me over the head with this, like, you fucker, this is the answer. This is the fucking answer. Like some people have a come to Jesus moment, or where they all of a sudden, they understand religion, or they have that epiphany, like, oh my God, and that's kind of how I was with this. It was just like this thing just dawned on me, and then repeatedly bludgeoned me over the head over and over.
Fortified in other ways and places.
Yeah, exactly.
And you say that would be the start of you looking at things differently?
I think that's what really made me turn that corner. Like before that, I was, when we first started the show, I was very much a believer in aliens as aliens and ghosts as ghosts and Bigfoot as Bigfoot, like not looking at all that these things are connected, just that weirdness exists in the world, and that was where my interest was. Because I remember as a teenager, just one day I'm just sitting there, and it's like the dumbest thought to have, but I'm like, you know what? Why can't werewolves be real? Like, who's to say that that's a weird thing? Like, why can't that be a natural thing? And, and obviously people don't really turn into werewolves, but maybe there's Dogman, But I always believed like all these things were separate, and aliens were like my big thing. And just the other day I was thinking about this, because when we first started this show, at that point I had a few UFO sightings, and as we were the first few years we were doing this show, I can't remember exactly how many, but I had a handful of other weird sightings in the sky that I couldn't explain. And I never knew, like, I'm hesitant to ever say that that's an alien, but like it was stuff I couldn't explain. And it would be to the point where, say I saw it at night, the next day I'd be going on the internet, like looking up like police helicopters to see what that looks like, or exploding space debris, or, just whatever could possibly be what I saw. And I never was able to find anything that duplicated the things that I saw. But at that point in time, I also had a very strong belief in aliens, and that UFOs were aliens and all that. But since I've kind of changed where my head's at, I haven't seen a single fucking thing that's weird in the sky since. And I mean, maybe I'm just because a lot of people go through life and they've never seen what they would call a UFO. So I guess I shouldn't say it's fucking weird. Like, oh my God, I don't see UFOs anymore. Maybe I was just lucky, or I don't know. But it is weird, because I had quite a few sightings over the years, and since I've changed my opinion on it, and again, it's not because I'm like aliens or UFOs aren't aliens and I don't believe that anymore, but it's just that I don't see anything strange in the sky anymore. And I still believe that there's strange things that happen in the sky. I just don't necessarily think it's an alien spacecraft anymore.
That's interesting, because UFOs and aliens was your thing. My ghosts and stuff was my thing, and I didn't see a slowdown in that type of interaction or encounters after I kind of maybe thought they were something else. Why do you think that happened with the UFO stuff? You physically stopped seeing them.
Yeah, I don't think it's connected at all, because I don't believe that ghosts are dead people, but I still have fucking weirdo activity here that a lot of people would call hauntings. I always just call them fairies. But it's all the same. Fairies, ghosts. Not that I think they're actually fairies either. That's just what I choose to call them, except for ghost cat. But I haven't seen ghost cat in quite some time. But that being said, I had my the shelf in my office was there were things that were just like moved slightly, like turned a little bit. I have a Ghidorah figure up there, and that was tipped over, and like some of my other stuff was just kind of moved slightly, which would be something as a cat would do. But not to say that's ghost cat, but I haven't actually seen ghost cat in several months, so I don't know what happened there.
Interesting. Should I tell my ghost cat thing that just happened?
Yeah, that was fucking wild. And at first, it was one of those things where I'm reading it and I'm like, at first I was thinking like all of this was happening in the same day, and then I read back through and I'm like, oh, wait a second, so this was 2 days late. Okay, now it's not so confusing anymore. I get it.
Yeah, it was very weird. There's a few cats that are stray around here, and there's only been these cats as strays around here for years and years, and I feed them and stuff, and I hang out with them. They're all pretty friendly. I can hold half of them. There's only one that's really scared, but there's 4 cats here. There's always been 4 cats. There's Orange Kitty, there's Little Kitty, and her mom Fluffy Kitty. And then there's Moo Kitty because she has white with gray spots. And the other morning, my wife went to work and I see her out. And when she, pulled forward and went down the street, she instantly stopped the car and looked at me. And I knew by the look on her face that there was a dead cat on the street. And that happens here a lot. I've had to scrape my own animals off the fucking street out here. I've seen people's dogs that like get out of the front door, run into the street and get hit right in front of their owners. It fucking sucks. So I wasn't surprised. I kind of like, by the look on her face, I knew it was a cat. So I looked and it was Little Kitty, which sucked because she's very young. She's very small and she's very friendly. And I play with these fucking cats every day. So that sucked. I had to call animal control and they picked her up, and all the cats were gone for 2 days. I didn't see any of them. The Orange Kitty is here. She has like a cat tower outside, and she lives there. She's here all day, every day, and none of them came around for 2 days, and that kind of made me feel weird. But on the 3rd day, I was sitting in the living room with my wife, and for some reason, I looked out the front window to see if Orange Kitty had come at all. And she was out there, and Little Kitty was sitting right next to her. And I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. I just ran out there, and I had to make sure it was her. And she just does the same old goofy shit, let me pick her up and pet her and all that shit. And even my kids came out, they couldn't believe it. They could not believe that it was the same cat. And maybe it was a different cat, but it was a cat that looked exactly like Little Kitty. I know. This is years now, years and years. I've been feeding these animals and hanging out with them, but I would have bet my life that the cat that got hit was Little Kitty.
That's crazy.
I really couldn't believe it, dude. I was stoked. I was so happy that
cat
was
sure. That's got to be fucking awesome.
Yeah, I was so happy, and I just like I told my daughters, don't. It was like in front of my house, like in front of my car. So I told the kids not to look, but my youngest went to open the windows in the morning. And she came into my room. She's like, "Hey, are you all right?" I was like, "Yeah, no, that sucks, man. I like I'm a very big cat person. I like the cats that are around here. If I could, I would bring them all in and all that shit." And she's like, "Yeah, that sucks." And she looked upset. I was like, "Are you all right?" And she goes like, "No, I accidentally looked." I was like, "Oh man." And she agreed. That was Little Kitty. We know what these cats look like. I just was dumbfounded. I'll chalk it up to it had been another cat. Cool. All of a sudden, there's another cat here for the first time in 7 years. Okay, but it was just very weird.
Especially considering that multiple people looked at it and were like, "Yep, that's Little Kitty."
Yep, my wife saw it, I did, and my youngest saw it. All confirmed that it was Little Kitty.
Crazy, man. And Little Kitty's been around since.
She came that day. Her and her mom don't come that often, And sometimes little kitty will come by herself, and sometimes Fluffy Cat will come by herself. But it was just weird because I don't know. You guys, a lot of you apparently like animal talk, especially in our Discord. But that morning when I started my wife's car, across the street I saw a Fluffy Cat, and for a long time none of them wanted to come up to me. They were all scared, and Fluffy Cat was the first to let me pet her. And all of a sudden one day she didn't let me pet her, and she wouldn't let me pet her from then on forward. And that was fine. I'd give her food, and she'd wait till I walk away, and she would eat her food. And I saw her across the street, and when I saw her, she just ran across the street to me and jumped up on this structure that's next to the front of my house, and I pet her right away, and she wouldn't let me stop petting her. And I was like, what's your problem? And then like 20 minutes later, when my wife went to work and drove away, I was like, oh, God damn it. Your daughter was on the floor. I was like, I understand. Okay. And then she left but I haven't seen either of them since, but they'll be back. I sent you a video this morning of Orange Kitty and the Moo Moo Kitty. They both showed up today, but they haven't come back yet. But that's not abnormal. They'll be gone. They could be gone for like a week or two, but they'll always, come over. If I open the front door, they all show up.
Ferals are weird, man.
Yeah.
They're so weird.
It sucks. We live in a weird area. I mean, there's like I don't know why. There's like a Burger King that's, I'd say, about 5 blocks from here, and it's just infested with cats. There's cats everywhere. And none of them run over here. I mean, I'm sure that's where these cats came from, but none of them have like made the connection that you get fed over here. It's just been these 4 cats for years and years and years.
Well, maybe those are the cats that maybe they chase all the other ones off.
Maybe
like, fuck you, this is our shit.
Dude, Mike, maybe they killed that cat. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it was a murder. They're like, no. Or maybe that was a doppelganger cat, and it was trying to take her place, and it's really like this alien thing.
Yeah.
And so she fucked off. She's like, no way, you're not taking me. And then mom was across the street, and she's like, and you're not taking my baby. And she comes flying over, drop kicks it, bites its throat out, and then disguises it as being hit by a car. She just leaves it in the middle of the road knowing a car is going to come by and waffle it. And then she's like, the perfect crime. And that's why he didn't see Little Kitty, because she was so afraid that she was going to be assimilated into this fucking alien thing. And then so finally mom tracks her down. She's like, yo, I kicked that thing's ass. It's dead. But she waited. She was waiting, watching, making sure it wasn't coming back.
Yep.
That's the story, and I'm sticking to it.
So here, I'm going with that. I'm going to tell my kids that's what's actually happened.
It's the only thing that makes sense. It's a perfectly rational explanation for what transpired that day.
Yeah, Little Kitty had to lay low, not be implicated in the crime. I get it.
Yeah, there's big doings that transpiring,
Yeah, my mind hasn't changed too much about the whole ghost thing. I've always had a kind of a broad view on that stuff. The alien stuff, I think it's changed the most about what I think about things. Doing the research, like as long as we have, and of course there was a time we weren't as busy in our lives to where, like me and Mike always talk back to the time where we didn't need notes. We would write notes, but by the time we got to record about it, we had read our notes and done so many versions of our notes that we didn't need them to do the show anymore. But doing that type of stuff, you can't help but have, not your opinions changed like to the opposite end of the spectrum of opinion, but most definitely change. A lot of the stuff is that tripped me out is like a lot of the government experiment stuff that you talked about, and all these weird projects. There's stuff that you hear about growing up, and there's a lot of these things that are declassified now that people don't really realize that they're declassified. A lot of these things aren't myth. They're not stories from books from the 70s. All this stuff happened.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, because I mean, really, my whole alien thing is just that these are things from like a part of the natural order. They're not from another planet. It's just we don't understand. So like they're alien in that regard. But I always looked at ghosts as being dead, like spirits left behind after the body dies. But I don't think that's the case anymore. And through a lot of the research I've done, it's made me think that there's more to it than that. Because with the nature of life and death and all that, like, it doesn't make sense that it would only happen sometimes. If it was going to happen to people, I think we would all be ghosts, and then there'd be a whole ghost thing that we would all exist in afterwards, and I think we would all be aware of it, because if ghosts are able to communicate with the living and they're able to stick around, like, I think we would have evidence of afterlife just being ghost world. And I don't think that's the case. Like we've all had people die in our lives, and how many of those people come back? So I think that there's something else behind it. And maybe sometimes it's something that'll mimic a loved one or come around because of I hear a lot from people who had someone pass recently, and they're like, at the wake, this or whatever happened, like some weird creepy phenomenon. And I believe, I'm not saying that I don't believe that happened. What I'm saying is I don't think that was your loved one that did that. I think it was something else that came to feed off the energy and made its presence known because it knew it would get a reaction.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's a good point.
So that's kind of the way I look at it now.
Yeah, that's growing up trying to learn about that stuff and like talking about all this stuff that my dad went through and what he studied. And I guess in fewer words, that's what he always led me to believe, is that most of the time it's not what people know as a ghost, and he kind of left it at that. And like like what you said earlier, I've always wondered what the fucking recipe is that makes somebody's spirit come back in any form and do shit. Like we should all be ghosts, or maybe with the population nowadays, there should be way more ghosts, even if it's some type of certain specific situation that causes that to happen. That should be happening way more.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially like people will make certain excuses like, oh, well, it only happens to people that have especially tragic deaths, or it only happens to people that had unfinished business. Well, most people are going to die with unfinished business, for one. And for two, tragic deaths, like what does that even, how do you quantify that? How are you able to measure what's tragic enough and what's not? Like, take 9/11, for instance. Thousands of people died. Are there thousands of ghosts there now? And that was extremely tragic, bunch of innocent life just died that day and the days following. And are they all ghosts? Or like, what about any of the school shootings? Like, are all of those victims now going to haunt the school? It doesn't make sense.
Right. That definitely doesn't seem to be part of whatever recipe that's required for that to happen.
I would believe voodoo. Like, if voodoo was the reason, like, all ghosts are voodoo practitioners, I'll be like, okay, all right, I understand now. You have to be a voodoo guy.
Yeah, that would make more sense, right?
Yeah. Or you're an elf or something. I don't know.
Elf ghost magic.
Yeah, I bet it exists.
So what would you call these things that, if they're not the spirits of people, are you talking, is that just like a dimensional thing, or do you think it has to be something else in the same codex of, of stuff?
Yeah, I think that there's a world that exists that we're not aware of. And I think that these things are, for lack of a better term, like they're the animals of this world. They have an intelligence, but just like anything else, they need to eat. They're just non-physical, so rather than feeding off matter, they're feeding off energy. And I think that we are able to provide that sustenance for them, and they're able to feed off of it. I don't necessarily think it's negative energy that they feed off of, but I think it's more our reaction to them is what triggers them. So, like, if they can create a situation where at a like at a the example I gave where there's weird shit happening at a wake and people react to it, and some people are going to be comforted by that, some people are going to be freaked out by it, but it's creating an emotional response to what it's doing, just like hauntings at a house. Like if and you can even equate it to being like it learns. So if it creates a ruckus and people get super upset, and so it knows, all right, I just need to repeat that. And if I keep repeat, and then you've got the spooky, scary ones where you've got knocking and laughing and shit being thrown against walls and stuff, because it's like a learned response. And then you've got other hauntings that start with similar things, but then you might have like kids that are comforted by this ghost or whatever. So it takes on more of a comforting presence when it's dealing with the children, because it's still getting that response. It's getting the response. It's just like a different type of response.
Right.
Maybe it's like a fucking a DoorDash sort of situation where it's like, you know what, I'm feeling like tacos today. They get a little spicy and they want to throw shit around. But then they're like, you know what? Some nice soul food would do me good. And then they go and they, fucking hug a scared little kid and tell them everything's going to be okay. And then they're able to eat off of that.
Right. No matter what emotion, they're invoking something that they seem to, like, in most cases, stick around for, repeat, offend, just keep...
Right.
Do something.
And you could even do the double dip. You scare the kid, and then when the kid gets scared, you show up and be like, oh, I'm here now, I'll protect you. And you got it both ways, yeah. Those are the fat asses of the ghost world. The gluttons. The gluttons of the ghost world, double dipping all over the place.
Right.
But I don't necessarily think that aliens are all that different from that. I mean, especially if you're going to believe that abductions are actually performed by some sort of otherworldly being, rather than being like a weird government experiment sort of thing. But I mean, I've covered before on the show how there have been cases with UFOs where, there's poltergeist activity, there's hauntings, there's weird figures, shadow monsters. And then same with Bigfoot. I provided a bunch of examples where Bigfoot was a ghost, basically.
Yeah, somebody was recently talking about Bigfoot, and they were asked about it, and they're just like, I can't really even, talk about it anymore, really. What can I say? It's gone from some type of lingering animal that lives deep in the woods that's able to hide itself to a prehistoric man that survived this long, that's evolved to that, to ghosts, to aliens, to having belts that teleport them. What do we talk about?
Yeah, it's got to be rough for people that have been researching Bigfoot from the beginning, and they've been holding that line that it's some sort of undiscovered hominid that's existed on its own. Which, I mean, honestly, that would be so fucking cool if that was the case. Like, we discovered a tribe of Bigfoot today, and now and it's actually like a fucking lost tribe of hominid creatures that have just avoided mankind. Like, that would be so fucking cool. I would love that. Absolutely. But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I may not think that's the case. It would be cool, and I think that's like my biggest problem with it. Maybe it's not my opinion that's changed as far as position goes, but it's gotten stronger. There's a lot of reasons why I got into paranormal stuff, but one of the things that why I liked it before I studied it like vigorously was like being super young, 4th, 5th grade, checking out a book in the library that's talking about Mokele and Bembe and Loch Ness Monster, and just showing somebody, like one of my friends, like, check this out, look at what this is saying. Like, people are saying they've seen this, like a lot of people, multiple people, for many, many years. And they would go cool and walk away. That I don't understand. I don't understand the lack of wonder that people have.
Yeah, that I get that too. And I remember I used to feel that way about aliens too, because I would always argue with my brother, who was very much like he's like UFOs aren't aliens, it's just stuff people don't understand when they see it. It's experimental craft, it's space to, all the classics. And I always remember I'd send him videos, well, how do you explain this? And he's like, just because I can't explain it doesn't mean it's aliens. I'm like, fuck you, aliens are real. But I would always get frustrated, like, how can you? And then he'd be like, well, even if they are real, like, what difference does it make? I'm like, what do you mean, what difference does it make? Like, that's like the craziest thing ever if they were real. And he's like, it doesn't change my day-to-day life, so I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And I get it now, but I still love it. And again, I don't think aliens are aliens, but if someone from outer space were to land here, that would be absolutely incredible, and I would love it so much. Like, I would prefer to have aliens over multidimensional beings that exist outside of our reality, but are able to come here. No, I don't like it.
Yeah,
I want them to just be regular aliens, please.
Yeah, that's a little bit much. That topic and glitches in the Matrix, not like the footage that comes out, because a lot of it's like frames per second shit people don't understand. But the idea of that like goes back way further than a lot of people realize. I was reading some paper like written in '83 about it the other day, and I was like, no, man, come on, don't say that.
So when we started the show together, we started it because we both had an interest going into this, going into starting this. We had an interest in the paranormal. But was that something like, because I know you had a bunch of experiences when you were growing up, but was your interest due to your experiences, or did you have the interest before your experiences?
I had the interest before, and not so. I mean, in ghosts and everything. Like I said, being young, getting books from the library from my school as a kid. I always found it amazing that, like of all things, the world we live in, that the world that we all share. This place houses a thing that was a giant mouth that spit all over a guy's house and then disappeared. Like, that's happened here. To me, that's just incredible.
I love that so much.
Yeah, that's just insane. There's multiple reports of an animal the size of a school bus that's part armadillo and jaguar. That stuff's cool. Bigfoot's neat. All that stuff's neat. I like that, but it just gets weirder and weirder, and that's what I loved about it. And again, how people just didn't have, like, they'd read something like that and just be like, "Oh wow, interesting." I was like, "No, like, don't you want to know why that's there, or how that's there, or like if we caught that thing, are we going to be able to explain it if we cut it open?" Like, to me, that's the big thing. But the experiences I had they were more scary. They were more. I didn't study ghosts a lot after my experiences. And later on, when I was a teenager, like every fucking channel in the world had a ghost show on. So I found it interesting and read up on it then. But I had the interest before, but the experiences I had, that was like a lifelong thing. That stuff was always around. So, like, for me, that type of stuff is real, no matter what it is. I guess, like, analyzing it beyond what it could be and try to, like, look at it in different angles happened when we did the show. But it's to me, it's always something that's just existed. There's no question of that stuff existing. And I understand that there's people who say that there's no chance that stuff does exist. But I just don't understand why people can turn their nose at hundreds of years of testimony from people from, like, all over the world, every culture, every religion.
And then the craziest thing to me is, and not to knock, religious beliefs or anything, but I shouldn't say all, most religions have some element of the supernatural to them. And there's no problem believing that aspect of the supernatural, but the fact that other supernatural things exist isn't a possibility. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I noticed that when I got older, as well as how paranormal the Bible was, and people were willing to buy that. But I mean, just people I knew who were very into religion, and we talk about ghost stuff, and they're just like, "That's all demons. It's all demons." I'm like, "Well, not according to a lot of that stuff your God can do. That's not. What if it's not a demon? They just don't want no part of
Yeah,
it."
yeah. But I mean, I don't know. We live in a very strange universe, and I say that mainly because I can't explain the universe, so it's strange to me. But it's everything that we think of as being strange and paranormal. If it's real, it's neither strange nor paranormal. It's just part of the natural universe, and we just don't have an understanding of it.
Right?
So
Yeah,
it's
and
it's just us not understanding reality.
yeah, that's something that I find to be supremely interesting as well. Like once we figure out what a Bigfoot is and stuff like that, like let's say it's something as perfect and as beautiful as that we catch one, and some psychopath's been making some helmet that translates all Bigfoot languages, and we're able just to be like, "So what are you, dude?" And he's like, "We find out that they just been here forever." Like that's to me, that's gonna be weird that they're just part of the natural world. That to me, that's very bizarre.
Yeah, but if they're not part of the natural world, then what are they? Are they something that just like formed here and it's like, fuck your natural laws, here I am. It's got, whether it's multi-dimensional, physical, some hidden race, like it's part of the natural world. We just don't understand it.
Yeah.
If it's real.
Yep. I mean, like you said, I'd love it to be little green men. I want it to be weird species all over the galaxy that, I mean, apparently don't do anything but abduct us and skin us alive sometimes. But it's probably not.
No, not likely. It's probably fairies and government officials trying to murder us.
I forget what I was reading, but like the FBI's like official stance on Bigfoot is inconclusive. You'd think that it would be just like no.
Yeah, it's and we've talked on the show before about how there seems to be an effort to cover up certain Bigfoot sightings or encounters.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing that's changed over the year, dude, is like how the internet like not quickly, but rather like recently has become a place to just to make money, and how information is just usually jumbled with so much bullshit. There's videos that like I saw people post like 2 days ago, and now that like the ones that have millions of views is like this story's from this place, and I'm like, no, that's not not at all. And it's basically all bullshit, so people watch it and people get paid. Like there's like no truth in anything anymore when it comes to looking into that shit. There's too much creepypasta. There's too much fucking shit that goes around as being actual stuff.
It's just to me it's just like all the connections are just what makes that's the shit that's weird to me now, is when I see things that are linked that shouldn't be linked, or hear about things that would be descriptive of one sort of event but it's really something else. That's the weird shit to me now. Although I do like a good monster sighting or cryptid sighting still. I am a sucker for that shit.
I think that's, I wish that's something that happened more. I mean, like I loved when, well, I don't want to say loved for the poor people of Zimbabwe, but when those goblins popped up, be like, again, people just laughed at that, but I, 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 I love that. I wish there was more of that, but I don't know. I don't want to be like an apologist and be like, well, everything's more industrialized and there's nowhere for those things to hide, so they've gone deeper into the forest. I want more Loch Ness monster footage, but you can only look for like old encrypted sightings. It's just not something that happens with much frequency anymore.
For me, one of the saddest things in my whole like history of researching the paranormal was finally coming to the conclusion that the Loch Ness Monster doesn't exist. That was so sad for me. I hated that. And then that was an early episode we did, and I felt so bad about it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And you get a bit older and you know how big things are, and it's cool and all. I love it, but doing research, you find out that every lock out there has a creature, so people go visit it. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
creatures of the Lumberwood stuff. I love that for years, and then
Oh man, that's the best.
it is.
I love that shit.
It's so bizarre, but it's just believable. I mean, like these are the first animals that Europeans are seeing. White Europeans are seeing in this landscape. It could be stuff that they just killed so they can cut down trees. It's just neat, and then you just do a little bit of actual research and find that, like, no, bullshitting was like their pastime. Making up stories was something that was important to them. That's something that they did. I've seen so many things. I don't even know. Like, what do you think of when you do research? When, God, I forgot what I was researching, to where somebody has seen this, like maybe a naturalist or an explorer, and they write it down, and it's just something absurd, something insane, and then like doctors and actual scientists include that into their work, but it gets ignored.
That's always the most frustrating thing when you've got somebody that's a very reliable witness and people are still like, yeah, well, he doesn't know what like they don't want to call him a liar now because he's reputable, but also they're like, I don't know if this guy is really telling the truth.
Yeah.
And you see some people, they just, like you've got, I call them the professional debunkers, where they just don't want to believe and they'll come up with any excuse to explain, like, calling Mothman a fucking bird.
Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to like reference Plato when it comes to history, but say he's insane when he talks about Atlantis.
Yeah, because they say that was just an allegory.
Yeah, that one thing he said was an allegory.
Well, I mean, it does make sense because he was like telling, it was like a lesson that he was teaching, like don't be like them, but so I mean what he's saying, but he provided like all these weird details in history that like wouldn't really make sense if you were saying and telling an allegory. Like,
yeah,
there's just a little too much information there.
Do you think that most people are just that close-minded?
Yeah, a lot of people just don't want their status quo to be shaken up. So like if they went their whole life with this is the reality of our world, they don't want to change that. Like take a cult, for instance. Like people that are in this cult, especially if they've been kind of had this cult mentality ingrained in them or brainwashed, or maybe they're raised in the cult or whatever. And then you have to like almost deprogram them from that way of life because they're even if it was like a weird fucked up situation, they're still, that was their life. And it takes a lot to get someone to want to change the life that they knew. And especially if you're someone who's closed-minded about things and you just like, you only thinking like rationally about, or I say rationally, like if you think otherwise, you're irrational. More like if you're thinking based on like modern science and history and the knowledge that is publicly available and forced down everybody's throat, then and you're comfortable in that, you don't want anything that goes outside of that. You're going to be like, that's fucking dumb and silly and it doesn't make sense. But there have been a lot of things throughout history that are dumb and stupid and don't make sense that later make perfect sense. And we have to rewrite things because we find new information out. And not to say that this is going to be one of those things. Like maybe this is something we will never know. But it's also something that if you look in mythology and religion, religious texts specifically, you can see that there is paranormal things that have been reported, things that have been seen. Like even in one of Columbus's journals, he talks about a light that was in the sky that went into the water, or maybe it was in the water and flew up and into the sky. I can't remember what direction it went. Either way, he saw a light that was in the water and in the sky. And at that point in time, there were no fucking planes. There were no drones. So what the hell was it?
Yeah. And this is a man who's been at sea fucking plenty in his lifetime. And it wasn't something that he saw every day, or else he wouldn't have specifically written about it. But nobody cares about that.
No, because it doesn't make sense. So you can just say, well, it could have been some sort of bioluminescent creature or or maybe he saw the reflection of a shooting star in the water and then he looked up and, oh my God, it's in the sky now. You know, like he's that dumb that he doesn't know what a reflection look. It's just silly. It's fucking silly.
Do you think people nowadays want to put their opinions before even their own beliefs? You know, they would rather be believed in their unique point of view rather than actually sit down and look at what could be going on?
I don't know. I think there are definitely people that, like, if they saw something, they wouldn't want anybody to know because of, you know, the fear of being ridiculed. But I don't know. And then you've got the opposite where you'll have people that'll be completely against this stuff, and then they have an experience like, fuck, man, I'm changing everything that I ever said about this.
Yeah. You guys let us know what's changed in your mind the most about paranormal stuff or ufology or cryptozoology over the years. If you've been listening to paranormal podcasts and reading paranormal books and watching television shows, what's changed in your mind the most? I mean, like, maybe what's changed in the world the most that alters your view on those things.
And also why. And I want it in written form. I want double space. And I expect you to correctly cite all references. And 3 to 5 pages, please. And I expect that on my desk by Wednesday morning.
Or we'll give you a bad iTunes review.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Enjoy the podcast. Get yourself a Whatcast t-shirt or a sticker pack. Who was that dude on that one episode? Try the links in Homie's page. All this and more can be found at www.thewhatcasters.com. Thanks again for listening and have a great week.